Welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And today I want to talk more about the tarot. And I was watching some tarot readers, and they're going, they would like draw a card and they would say, sevens represent theft, lying, and deceit. And so like Seven of Swords is the classic cheater thieving card. And then another reader was saying the High Priestess is usually given to the sign of Cancer, but then he wants to give it to the sign of Pisces. And I was like, the cards reveal themselves. They speak a language, but it's also like a math equation. And so in equations, things reduce down to 0, things reduce down to a 1, things balance out on both sides of an equation. And the mathematical equations say true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1. And so you're looking for consistency in a pattern, in a structure, in a statement. So cards are creating statements. And it's not that intuitive. It's actually scientific. And so we have the higher major arcana, which one tarot reader said represented like the inner life and the life of the soul, and the regular cards represent the playing cards represented the numbers represented daily affairs and the mundane things. And so, okay, you made a statement. Now you have to be able to back it up with the symbols and images, create an equation, and it should echo true. There should be continuity. There should be a mirroring, a parallel. And then we could say those statements are true. So I'm like laying in bed this morning before work, and I was just thinking, that just came to my mind. And when you're creating your own deck, hopefully you've learned to play with other decks and you have a familiarity with the vocabulary. So the cards should teach you, not just on an intuitive, abstract, personal level, but kind of like in a scientific way. Like E equals MC square is a sound, rational equation that we can apply to our daily lives and make atomic and nuclear energy with. So I put the cards together, for myself. I was like, I just listed them in order. So the mage is given the number 1. So then when I look at my deck and I place all the aces, which are 1s, together, I should get a clue about what aces represent. So in a regular tarot reading, someone might say, oh, aces, a divine power is coming to you, a wish fulfillment, a blessing from on high, from God. Okay. Now let's think a little bit more occult-like, a little more scientific, a little bit more like an alchemist. And we see that the classic mage has all 4 elements on his table with a gesture as above, so below, as within, so without, somehow. You have to be at mage status in order to access the full power of an ace. So an ace can't fully manifest for you. You can't wield it. Those powers aren't at your disposal unless you have mastered working with the four elements. And so it sheds light on the ruling card, which is the magician. A magician lives in two worlds. A magician can access other dimensions and bring that type of power, insight back into this world and create and bring something into this world that shouldn't exist. And the opposite is true. It should be able, something from this world should be able to go into that world. And so we see that with all sorts of uh, comic books that have now been made into movies. So so we now understand who could even have access to an ace would be someone possessing a magician type ability. Let's move on to the two of swords, two of pentacles, two of cups, two of wands, and the high card is the high priestess. Fitting because she sits between the two pillars of Jachin and Boaz, or Joaquin and Boaz, however you say that. The pillars of black and white, of mercy and severity. She is also sitting between the worlds as above, so below. She's literally at the center point of it all. When you take two swords and cross it, you get a crossroads, you get a center point, you get a vortex of swirling power. So, what is going on with the two of swords? We see balance, we see truce, but we also see the birth of manipulation, the birth of change. And so, a high priestess, and so it's like not one sword, but two. When we see fighters using two swords, they have to be maybe more dexterous. Two of coins in the Crowley deck is balanced by a serpent with a figure eight, encircling the coins. And so you could almost, that even suggests infinity. It also suggests a circle around a coin could be a cosmic womb, a great divine magic circle, a protecting, it's like a sanctuary, but it's around two coins representing two different realities. And once again, the ability to manipulate, to go back and forth. So, psychic powers are given to people who can see from someone else's perspective. Once you learn to see the other as the self and the self as the other, you can multiply that and be seeing with God's eyes from many perspectives. To be able to put yourself in your enemy's shoes, to put yourself in the other person's moccasins, might actually teach you about relating and relationships, but it's more on the level of perspective. So two of wands, or I should say two of cups, is a kind of a traditional, in one tarot reader, he says that's his favorite cards, indicating a love relationship. And but what I see but now we know it's linked with the high priestess card, and water being emotions. This could be a situation where you're sharing the same dream and you're being empathetic, so it could be a card of healing. And then we look at it in order. Two is right underneath a supporting structure of the Ace of Cups. So I was doing my own inner work and I see keys. Like I see all the chakras have keys, and you have to find all the keys from the root chakra up to the third eye. And for everyone, we have doors that are open, doors that are closed, doors that were easy access, doors that are hard. They've never been opened for 1,000 years. There's dirt and rust, and the door is kind of like cemented shut. we have to learn to pry those doors open. We also have to learn to close down doors. We could be too reliant on certain doors that are open for us. And so we have to like go on this like computer simulation journey through different levels and find the keys. When you find the right keys and you put them in at the right time, like you might have to put in 12 keys at once, the whole zodiac belt. It will then unlock your crown chakra. And the reverse is true. Within your crown chakra are keys that will unlock your lower chakras. And we see this with the High Priestess card. 2 is supporting 1. Like, because we have the aces and then we have the 2s, the 3s, 4s, and 5s. So we can see this pyramid structure. In our culture, what's trendy now is people are rediscovering multi-dimensions and new dimensions. And they're all thinking we're gonna like get out of our bodies and ascend. But at the highest plane of Ace, that's all potential energy and has no substance. It's almost just a nice thought. Everything begins with an idea, but it has no value. It's a pipe dream until it comes down the dimensions, all the way down to the earth, to the pages, to formulate it and have the vision come true. So there's just as many keys in the crown chakra to help access your root chakra. So you have to go up the ladder and down the ladder. And it's this combination of finding your keys and moving up the serpent's path, then coming down the lightning path and manifesting it. Energy doesn't, in a weird way, energy doesn't exist in the highest realm. Energy is created between the polarity and the tension of the high and the low, the black, the white, the yin and the yang. So the highest beings go, I would like to materialize myself from the level of thought and plan and insight and calculations and energy. I would like to materialize and have an experience. And the ones in the experience are going, well, I would like to know how all that behind the veil stuff works as energy, as calculations, as thoughts. And they want to disembody. So we get balance and the struggle and relating to the worlds with the 2 of Swords, 2 of Pentacles, 2 of Cups, 2 of Wands, and the High Priestess, who is basically bound on a cross of not just 2 poles, but 4. Moving on, the Empress is given the number 3. When we put her in 3s, we get the famous 3 of Swords. It usually is stabbing across and represents the pain of relationships and should also indicate a third party in your relationship. You know, heartache, breakup, and challenge. Is that so with the High Priestess? So I look at the High card and I'm making a statement with the lower card, 3 of Swords. But the High Priestess is all about abundance and Venus and relationships. Swords are usually about separation, abstraction, and thought. 3, we usually like to think in the mortal plane in a dualistic way as a relationship is 2. But really 3, the observer, the witness, the therapist, the negotiator, the other person who's not of the dualistic system brings balance. So really 3 of Swords could represent, instead of a third party like a breakup situation, it could represent mediation, things coming to justice. It could represent a painful truth that then brings balance. 3 is a stronger support system. So the High Priestess is disembodied. The High Priestess is between worlds. That's not a very grounded position. But the Empress is in a very stable position. So 3 of Swords could really represent, through technology, through insights, through psychotherapy, issue is now resolved. So 3 of coins could definitely represent balance, stabilization of like the stock market or whatever you're dealing with. So 3 is half of 6, and 6 is beauty. 6 is the lover's card. So 3, half of that could be the foundation turning point, bringing about a beautiful resolution. So when you start thinking mathematically, very basic mathematically, you get deeper insights into the meaning of the cards. So 3 of swords or wands could definitely be a very beautiful situation here, because fire is passionate. I see talent. I see dexterity. I see someone actually, like, when you start a project and you're learning it, but you're not good at it, you're fumbling. At 3 of wands, you're starting to juggle this. You're starting to understand the flow, and there's a rhythm, and you're gaining dexterity. So, which then becomes beautiful, which then starts to become music, and then relates to the Empress card. 4 is given to the Emperor, stable, severe. 4 is usually a balancing color, but it could be very oppressive. When you have an emperor or a king, an authority figure over you, even though it provides structure for all the chaos, it also brings limitation. You have to follow the law. You have to subordinate. You have to take the path of the servant or the slave. You have to take a lower position, and you have to learn to receive commands from a trusted authority figure. So 4s could represent a teacher. So without any high cards, once you get good at the tarot, you should be able to see the numbers in the high cards and the high cards in the numbers. So the system in my mind looks like one pillar, and the pillar is square. And on each face of the pillar is a different element: fire, water, earth, or air. If I take a section out of the pillar, I still have all 4 elements. The pillar, from 10 at the bottom to 1 at the top, is the full tarot deck. It's one pillar, it's one angel, it's one watchtower. We're looking at it in sections. That's how I see the tarot. And so that all the 4s, that slice of 4, level 4, there is a character, and that character is the Emperor. That Emperor is, to fully unlock the power of 4, you have to be working with the Emperor energy. To fully unlock the power of 3, it has to be the High Priestess, the Empress. So let's move down a level. 5 is really interesting because it's the Hierophant that is ruling 5. And 5 is usually very conflicting, but it's also the middle. So the Hierophant is seen as maybe a pope or a preacher, a middleman. It could also be seen as the system, like religious figures. They're just speaking what, it's a controlling thing in a way. 5s usually have a negative because it's a conflict, but in a weird way, it's also the middle. So in the eye of the storm, there could be a calm. There could be, so it could actually really, 5 could be a symbol for the Buddha. Eye of the storm, the empty, the center of the wheel, So obviously, and it's interesting that I said center of the wheel, because the 10th card, Wheel of Fortune, I believe it's Wheel of Fortune. And so there's this awareness with all the stuff going on around you. And a priest is supposed to be like a channel, the spokesperson of the divine. And so Buddha, in his enlightenment, had enlightening things to say. So it was a symbol of, so he could, so Christ, Buddha, a professor of philosophy and psychology, someone who's reached that state of connection, balancing the 4 elements, puts themselves in the position of the 5th element and becomes a Hierophant. the speaker of a higher truth and wisdom, a guide, a light in the dark, and someone who brings the law. And the law is like a spiritual law of ethics, of conduct, of morality, the morality of nature. So in this deck, it says, 5 of Swords, defeat. But thinking really with swords, written word, technology, it's the law. And the law of universal language, computer programming, mathematics, science. So it could also be a symbol of beauty. And roses are a symbol of beauty. Roses are on a 5 structure. I think it's like 5-leaf structure. Everything of the rose family usually has 5 petals. 5-petaled flowers usually belong to the rose family, which is also a symbol for love. And then who do we go to for the marriage? We go to the priest, who's supposed to have some divine authority to make it more real than real. It's real in heaven and it's real below. And then we have to really wonder, is that really the position of the high priest? Are we putting them in the wrong role? Uh, so let's move on to 6. 6 is the lovers, and I and so we look at swords, and it says science, and it's this beautiful image of symmetry. We see the pentacles, it says success, another beautiful image of symmetry, and cups, 6 of cups, pleasure, another image of symmetry, wands, victory, and symmetry. Uh, the love. And so we're just looking at these cards from like 1 to 6. And they're so like as a foundation for these higher cards, it's the heart chakra, it's love, it's Tifereth, it's beauty. And you really can't access the beauty unless you fall in love, unless you're enchanted, drawn into it by mysterious means. And love is a very abstract word. Love is a reflection of being connected to something real, something intangible, like that spark of life people call God, that initiating force. And so when we come into contact with someone, they reflect the other half of ourselves. And for a moment in time, it creates a spark, and we get a high off of it, of the coming together of opposites. In the material plane, they seem to come together and separate. Because soon as they come together, they neutralize. They exchange, neutralize, then they have no charge, and so they must be forced to separate. Through their separation, they become polarized, pick up the energy again, and then come together again. And so it can also, so as beautiful and powerful as 6 is, it could represent neutralizations, coming to an ending. It's half of 12. So it's not a full divine union unless the person ascends. So it's almost like, so we could say at love, there's keys that will unlock the cards all the way up to 1 and 0. So you can't fully grasp a sword. You can't grasp the Ace of Swords unless you have the other swords, or 6s working for you. So in a weird way, you can never attain heaven unless you attain earth. Once you've mastered earth, you have the lower level of your pyramid built. Your lower chakras are built and strong. Then you can actually master the upper chakras. So like in magical new age and spiritual communities, there's a lot of drama. It gets a negative rap as woo-woo, crazy. People are misunderstanding law of attraction. People are misunderstanding how to work with energy. Energy healers are always, psychic attacks, energy healer, and all this religious bullshit is because they haven't mastered their lower chakras. They're escaping. We got wounded healers escaping into higher dimensions, trying to become high priestess, and they have nothing tied to the earth. They lose a sense of reality. And in a more basic level, Really rich people who are living like a whole different lifestyle, they lose touch with what it's like to work a 9 to 5 job. They lose touch with what it's like to walk to work and deal with homeless people and basically have to fight your way through rain and snow and bad people just to get to your desk to go to work. So, when things are just handed to you, you can't relate to it anymore. And so, love and relatability and connection helps you then grasp a divine elemental power. Because the more you move up, the more things become the singularity. The more things become the one, the source, that quantum level of reality where all things are connected. And so it's almost like a well you have to have a willingness to be in the earth. You fully accept your life as it is, as the character is you, with all your flaws. That's true healing. You go, yeah, stuff happens, but it's not. It happens to me, but it is not me. It doesn't define me. So most psychology nowadays is helping people understand the lowest level of coping with physical reality. If you can't cope with physical reality, you probably can't, you're not worthy to really understand the occult. That's just my perspective. It's like a cracked vessel doesn't hold the spiritual water, it flows through. So, a lot of people will do like maybe some spiritual drugs and stuff, but if the structure was fundamentally cracked to begin with, the water doesn't stay and you have to do a spiritual drug again or the ritual again. It's like an addiction because you can't hold on to what you got. So we work on building the structure very well first. Then I give you some water, some spiritual water, and it stays with you pure, sacred, clean for a lifetime. So that's what the veil does. On your altar, there should be a cup with water, and there should be a veil covering the cup of pure water. The veil is silence. The veil is mystery. And it's also very protective. So in silence, you create a magic circle already. In stillness and in silence is how you construct the psychic shield or your personal circle, uh, the alchemist's crucible. Like, and so it's in silence that the divine comes to you, that your intuition, in silence and stillness, the waters become clear and purified. And so we're getting a reflection here at level 6. Like the mirror is getting so clear, the water is getting so still that the images reflecting, beaming in from higher dimensions, you get a real sense. And that sense is beauty. That sense is awe. That sense is joy, euphoria. And that's only at level 6 because that is just a reflection of the divine mystery, whatever we call it, that unknowable, that singularity, that potential, that quantum level, that immortal state, that timeless state. So we can't really even fully perceive 6. So what's really interesting, well, we're running out of time, but we are looking up in a way at the divine, and what we see is the shadow. We're not above looking down and seeing the light reflected from source. So it's literally like this is a great example. I'm wearing a hat, I'm looking up, and the sky is shadowed. If I was above the hat looking down, I would see the light reflecting. See how it's two totally different realities? I'm looking up and it appears dark. But if I could get above and look down, it appears light. You have to rise above your challenges, see from a higher perspective with a different mind to see the truth. You have to, so that's the way of seeing. This was a really good video. Let's leave it there.